Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we make sense of the financial jargon that makes your head spin and uncover why that company down the street is suddenly making headlines or disappearing from the stock market. Today we're diving into a semi-annual report from Boston Trust Walden funds, and let me tell you, deciphering this is like trying to find a needle in a haystack of financial data, but that's what we do here. Now the core of this filing is all about showing you exactly where your money is going. Think of it like a detailed shopping list for each fund they manage. We're looking at their holdings here on June 30th, 2025. The majority of these funds are invested in stocks, which isn't surprising. What's interesting is the blend of companies they've picked. For the Boston Trust SMID Cap Fund, for example, we see companies like Cavco Industries, Choice Hotels, and Columbia Sportswear. These are the types of companies that aren't household names but are crucial to the economy. In the financial sector for that same fund, we see a strong focus on banks and financial services. Companies like American Financial Group, CBO Global Markets, and Cincinnati Financial Corp take up a good chunk of the portfolio. This suggests they're betting on the stability and growth of the financial industry, and for the Boston Trust Walden SMID Cap Fund, a significant portion is in information technology with names like Akamai Technologies, Amdocs, and Checkpoint Software. It tells us they believe in the continued innovation and expansion of tech. Now let's talk about performance. For the Boston Trust Walden SMID Cap Fund, the net asset value per share started the period at $24.67. By the end of June 2025, it had dipped slightly to $24.28. That's a small step back, but it's important context. The expenses for this fund, meaning the fees you pay to manage your money, are holding steady at 1% of their average net assets. That's a pretty standard number in the industry. And get this, the portfolio turnover rate for this fund, which shows how often they buy and sell stocks, is pretty low at 7.55%. This hints at a more buy and hold strategy, trusting in the long-term value of their picks. Looking at the big picture, the Boston Trust SMID Cap Fund has a solid $767 million in net assets. That's a lot of money, reflecting a lot of trust from investors. Now let's hop over to the Boston Trust Walden International Equity Fund. Their net assets are around $257 million. This fund is heavily invested in common stocks, almost entirely, making up 98.6% of its portfolio. The story here is global diversification. They have a substantial stake in Japan, nearly 20% of the fund. This includes companies like Ajinomoto, Mitsubishi Estate, and Toyota Motor Corp. They're clearly looking for growth opportunities in the Japanese market. And over in Switzerland, about 9% is invested in companies like Nestle, Roche Holding, and Zurich Insurance Group. This spread shows a strategy of global reach. For the Boston Trust Walden International Equity Fund, the net asset value started the period at $13.92. It jumped to $16.17 by June 2025. That's a really healthy 19% increase for the period. Looking at the total year-over-year return, it's also very strong. This international fund is showing a 16.16% total return for the first half of 2025 alone. That's a fantastic performance, especially when you compare it to some of the other funds. Expenses here are at 0.92%, which is also quite competitive. And the turnover rate is just under 8%, again suggesting a long-term investment horizon. Finally, let's look at the Boston Trust Walden Small Cap Fund. This one is massive, with over $1.3 billion in net assets. Their investments are valued at over $1.32 billion. Like most of the others, it's heavily weighted in common stocks, almost 99.3%. And a big focus area is information technology, with stakes in companies like A10 Networks, Accession Technologies, and Qualys. They also have a strong presence in industrials, with investments in companies like Acuity, Applied Industrial Technologies, and Donaldson Company. This fund is really spread out across various important sectors. For this small cap fund, the net asset value started at $18.02. It ended the period at $17.36. That's a decrease of about 3.66% for the first 6 months of 2025. Expenses are at 1%, pretty standard for this type of fund. Interestingly, looking at the statements of changes in net assets, there was zero distributions to shareholders in the first half of 2025. This could mean they're reinvesting profits or holding on to cash. Now, let's talk about the financial health of these funds, specifically looking at their distributable earnings as of December 2024. The asset management fund had over $339 million in net unrealized appreciation. That's a big positive number, meaning their investments grew in value on paper. The equity fund also had substantial unrealized appreciation, nearing $176 million. These are good signs of growth from their investments. The S-Mid Cap Fund showed strong gains as well. These numbers, while complex, can be simplified. Essentially, when a fund has a lot of unrealized appreciation and low or no capital loss carry forwards, meaning the prior losses are used up, it's a good indicator that the fund managers are doing a solid job picking winners. These expense ratios and turnover rates we've seen suggest a consistent long-term strategy. The Boston Trust Walden funds seem to prioritize holding onto quality companies for extended periods. Rather than chasing short-term trends, this is a hallmark of a value-oriented approach, looking for solid companies that will grow steadily over time. Overall, Boston Trust Walden Funds manages a significant amount of money spread across multiple funds with distinct investment goals. The fact that they have specific funds for asset management, equity, mid-cap and small cap, as well as international investments, shows they cater to a diverse range of investor needs. The relationship with their investment advisor, Boston Trust Walden Inc., seems to be stable, with a focus on consistent management strategies as highlighted by the low portfolio turnover rates. They also seem to be reinvesting profits rather than distributing them heavily, which could signal confidence in future growth. Looking at the net assets across all their funds, it's clear they are a significant player in the investment management space. The strength of their holdings in blue chip tech and established financial institutions tells us they're playing it relatively safe, but with a focus on quality. Now, for my opinion, Boston Trust seems to be running a fairly conservative but well-diversified operation. They're not taking huge risks, and their low turnover suggests a belief in buying good companies and holding them. The international fund in particular is showing some really strong performance results, which is noteworthy. Their expense ratios are competitive, which is always a plus for investors. The main risk I see boils down to their conservative approach potentially missing out on high growth opportunities found in more aggressive or niche strategies. Also, while they have strong holdings in popular sectors like tech and finance, the overall global economic climate and specific geopolitical events could always impact international investments. In conclusion, Boston Trust Walden Funds appears to be a solid choice for investors looking for steady, diversified growth with a long-term perspective. They aren't trying to be flashy, they're focused on building wealth through reliable companies. Alright, that's a deep dive into the Boston Trust Walden Funds filing. What do you think about their investment strategies and performance? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more corporate secrets revealed. And definitely join our Discord community linked in the description for even more insights and to connect with fellow finance enthusiasts. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep decoding.